FS Elite at FlightSimExpo 2024 is proudly brought to you by AnyBuilds. Check out their A300 right now from Microsoft Flight Simulator. Cool. All right. Cool.
All right.
Yeah.
Wink, wink.
Wink, wink. Hi guys, welcome. So Callum here from FS Elite, and I'm joined by Microsoft and Asobo to talk about Microsoft Flight Simulator and Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024. Firstly, welcome back to FlightSimExpo. This is your second year. Compared to last year, how has it been for you guys so far?
It's hot.
Not Houston hot though.
It's not Houston hot, but I miss the airplanes a little. You know, Vegas is Vegas. But there's tons of simmers here, which is great. Energy is really positive, so it's nice. But I already told Evan, next year, please, somewhere where there's airplanes again.
Yeah,
Oh,
maybe a little bit cooler as well,
Yeah, maybe.
and not in the middle of June. But no, it's been good. And for yourself, Seb?
Yeah, really good show this year. Yeah, lots of great people and question and discussions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, yesterday was your big kind of an hour and a half presentation. I mean, this room kind of emptied out and you had that whole room filled over there yesterday, which was amazing. So I want to just begin before that about the Microsoft, the Xbox showcase that we had, the trailer, showing off the missions and stuff. So we kind of had a glimpse of that last year, and again, it was brought to kind of the attention. What is the inspiration behind these missions, and do you guys so far have a favorite that you've been trying out or flying for yourselves?
So I don't think of them as missions as much as I think of them as authentic aviation activities. And that's really what they are. We're talking to the Coast Guard, we're talking to firefighting organizations to get this right. All we really are trying to do is allow people to do what people in the real world do with airplanes. That's it. And what do I like the best? I like the aerial advertising. It's weird, but it's really fun because the physics is great, right? So you have to actually pay attention to what the banner does and what the wind does. So that's my current favorite.
Kind of weirdly, that's my retirement plan, is to like fly those planes and just fly around Spain or something with those advertising banners behind. Have you got a favorite, Seb?
So far, the one I like a lot of them. The one I spend most time with is a helicopter delivering stuff like the air conditioning.
Yeah.
Because it's, especially if you disable the assistances, it's very technical you have to stand still, even with the wind, to catch the rope and attach it and then fly. It's a very, you don't want to shake it too much. I think just flying with a goal brings flying to another level, right?
Yeah,
Rather
100%.
than just flying without any goal, and that's really, really cool. And so, I also love aerial advertisement and many other missions. So it's really cool.
That's interesting. It's the physics, right?
Yeah,
it's the
yeah,
physics
yeah, yeah.
that really make it. That's what's unpredictable about flying, right? That's fun.
Yeah. No, I can appreciate that. And funnily enough, you mentioned the helicopter. Sergio from Helisimmer and I were talking earlier how there's so much helicopter hardware and software, and it's probably the biggest presence I've seen. So hopefully we'll see even more people trying out those types of activities as well. So one of the biggest things you kind of showed off yesterday during your presentation, and we saw a glimpse of again in the trailer, was this new walk around mode, which looks really cool. For those who are saying, well, this is a flight simulator, this isn't a walk around simulator, what are you going to say to those people back at home?
Well, I mean, I can tell you when I flew around my Cessna, that's what you do. There's no taking off without this. So I think this is as authentic as it needs to be. And you know, I think we wanted it back in 2020, we just didn't get to it. But it's absolutely part of aviation. That's how you make sure everything works right. So it's good to see it now, and it's a natural extension. And then maybe the picture taking thing, yeah, that's a me thing. I mean, it's basically, now we can bush fly anywhere, land anywhere, and it looks great. Just give me something to experience, right? And so that's why we have animals. That's why we take pictures. So that's an addition to the actual checklists.
So I guess this all fits in with the theme of now there's even more purpose to go flying, because once you land, you can then go out and explore the digital world that you've been recreating for all these years. Interesting. And seasons, they're coming. Anything you want to add to the seasons from like either a technical or?
Yeah, so you could see, we showed yesterday the many different biomes which adapt to the seasons in the trees. A lot of work has gone into the ground, grass, flowers. In 2020 it was really just one texture. changing color, but the same everywhere. And now there's dozens and dozens of different flower types and stuff, and adapting to the season, so it really creates a different experience, totally different experience depending on the season you're flying.
And it's not just the ground textures that are changing with seasons either, is it?
It's everything that, yeah, it's the trees, it's the crops, it's the grass, it's the color, it's the flowers.
It's the wetness of the ground,
Yeah.
which we haven't shown in the trailer yet. It's so cool.
Yeah,
When you,
yeah.
you see your tire tracks and everything, it's awesome. Looks fantastic.
FS Elite at FlightSimExpo 2024 is proudly brought to you by Pimax. Check out their Pimax Crystal Light right now for some of the best VR headsets available today. Amazing, and just again thinking of like the world itself, 3D waves. They were shown off yesterday. Do you think that's going to have much impact, especially when you've got amphibian aircraft as well?
Sure.
The waves.
Oh yeah.
On the, yeah, exactly.
I mean,
Yeah.
we immediately looked at the Spruce Goose and all the other waterplanes, and it feels really cool now. And actually taking off is obviously much harder.
Yeah, and you actually sometimes even have to look at the waves, and it really impacts your takeoff. Maybe you delay, you slow down a little bit, you delay it, you let the wave pass by, and you accelerate again. It's not just going full gas and then whatever happens, whatever happens. Or even when you land. I remember when I did a lot of waterplane flying, there's always this pass you do very low to check the wave height if it's right, and you know it can be not the same everywhere,
Yeah.
right? On a lake, for example, and this was never really a thing, right? You could just land in it, and now it actually matters, right? If the wave height is too high, the landing goes not so well. So that
Sounds like you've had experience with that.
yeah.
It's for everything. Like when we say, oh, we have rocks everywhere now, you can't just like land on the height field and it all works. Oh no, you crash. You gotta watch out. And same with waves.
Excellent, awesome. So I'm just going to move on a little bit. So yesterday you spoke about 15 million users now using Microsoft Flight Simulator. Do you think all of these extra reasons to fly will help just continuously grow that?
Yeah, I mean, we did a survey, right? I mean, obviously we're making the sim for simmers, right? So we asked the community across the user base, and we basically separated into core simmers, gamers, and casual to digital tourists, I call them. And we said, what is the number one thing that you would like to see? And the only thing that was consistent was we want more things to do. And then was okay, well, let's give them stuff to do then. And in the different categories of aircraft, so people are not, forced to go in the airliner when they're scared of them, right? So there's some people, some simple things like a gyrocopter or something like that. So yeah, it's basically wish fulfillment. That's what people wanted.
Excellent. And coming to Game Pass day one on, is that also PC and Xbox on the same day, or is it the staggered release?
Yeah. We're now all the same at the same time.
All the same, so Xbox on the same day. Excellent. So everyone can just get in, jump in straight.
Right in.
Amazing. Sounds great. So some technical questions. Ray tracing, probably one of the biggest features that has been requested for a long time. For those who may not know exactly what ray tracing will have the impact on for Flight Sim, can you just give us a little brief overview of what that will be able to do for them?
It's very important, especially in the cockpit when you fly right now, even with very high resolution shadow maps. Depending on the angle of the sun, you always get these little flickers, right? Or sometimes the light can punch through something, or there's no shadow at all, and it sort of kills the immersion somehow. And ray tracing, really, it makes all form of shadows perfect, right? And when I mean perfect, it's the sun is not a point; it's a disk. So the further you are away, the more the shadow gets soft and blurry, which helps the eye, which is used to it, to know what the shadow you're seeing is coming from. If it's very sharp, it's coming from something very close. If it's blurry, it's coming from something far away. It looks natural, and it makes everything more. When you look for a button or it's all easier, right? It makes everything more natural. So it's really, really important change.
And is this a requirement for Flight Sim 2024 to have a graphics card capable of ray tracing, or is that a kind of toggle on and off feature?
No, it's not a requirement. You can always still use the sim if you don't want, or if you don't have ray tracing, of course. Yeah.
Excellent. Cool. Okay. So DX12. You laugh. Why'd you laugh?
Oh, because of the community topic around DX12.
Hence why it's in my question bank. Anything you can add to DirectX 12 for Microsoft Flight Sim 2024?
That's a SAP thing.
I think it will be the default,
Okay.
and we're heavily optimizing and debugging and improving it. Yeah, it's gonna be it's our default working graphics API for a while now. So we're going for that by default.
I think that will please a lot of people in the comment sections for sure. Awesome. So you spoke a little bit about weather improvements yesterday. Can you give us an overview on what we can expect, especially for like the clouds, turbulence, and we even saw tornadoes in the trailer from last year. How will that all work? Are the tornadoes in real time, or are they kind of placed around depending on what's going on?
We looked into the tornadoes at real-time thing. If there were such a system, then the world would be a safer place. I mean, it's basically not predictable what tornadoes are. So right at this moment, tornadoes are just in the mission system.
Okay, interesting. And the real-world weather itself, any improvements to that, and maybe even something about the historical weather that you mentioned in one of the developer live streams before?
Yeah, historical weather is not going to be there for launch. There's a couple of organizations that have historical weather. Vestas Climate Library is one of them. Our data provider, Media Blue, actually has a historical weather library. The question always was, can we do this if it's not worldwide data? So this is something we're still discussing. That was the first reaction. Sure, you can have some weather event, but how does that match with anything else?
Yeah.
Right. So this is a discussion, but we saw the community feedback, so we're going to look at it. But it's a post-launch thing.
Cool. And anything else from you, Seb, about weather?
Yeah, so weather is a very important thing about weather is how the lighting works, the sun or the moon at night, how the rays of the light impact the ground or the clouds. In real life, it's very rich usually, right? It wasn't that rich in 2020 because there was just one color, right?
Yeah.
Depending on the height on the sun on the horizon, we were computing if it was going through a lot of atmosphere, and that defines one color. Now it's really by layer. Every pixel of cloud knows how much. It follows the ray, like almost like ray tracing, right? If where the ray goes through, and if it touches more or less atmosphere, so it changes the tone and the color, and it gets a much more natural effect. Also, on top of that, we added the cirrus cloud layer, which is this very thin layer, which you can. By the way, you can have it very high, but you can also move it lower if you want. You don't need to have and these cirrus are not always at the same height, right? They're not like at 10,000 or whatever. You can have it at 5 or 15, you can really control that, and so yeah, it really improves the way the sky looks like and how it feels, and we're also working on smaller improvements on as you said, turbulence, or for example we showed that yesterday. We really simulate wake turbulence for every aircraft in the sim, whether it's multiplayer, player, whether it's traffic, everything has wake turbulence for up to. I mean, I said 6 minutes. It's just because after 6 minutes it goes away. Yeah. There's no time limit. It's just that when the energy is fully dissipated, it goes away. So the longest I've ever seen is 6 minutes, but it's just as long as it needs.
Yeah.
And it's everywhere. And so that also adds a lot of turbulence, especially on big airports.
And as someone who's cabin crew, I experience a lot of turbulence. So it'd be nice to see more of that in the sim, rather than real life. Oh, yeah. One of the cooler things I thought was announced yesterday was this new flight planner being worked on by Working Title. What was that an idea from them, or did it come from you, the community?
It came probably from me. I mean, basically, it's a recognition that we have a job to do, which is onboarding people to aviation. And there's a ramp, right? Most people start with a GA aircraft. At some point, you sort of ramp up towards airliners. And when we don't, as a base sim, don't have charts or really navigation tools, it stops, right? And then forcing people to do some payware add-on, it's a very limiting factor. So I felt very strongly that we need to do something. So I asked Working Title to do this, and they're enthusiastically embracing the challenge.
And so Working Title are just one of many partners you not only announced but also brought up on stage to share that time with you. We had Fabio Merlo for Flight Control Replay, we had Orbex, we had AnyBuilds, the A330, both the 200 and the 300 announced. That was a shock. Have you guys...
The GE, that's right.
Yeah,
we're going to go deeper in airliners in the future. Like, I think we set a new bar, probably when the 310 came in.
Yeah.
And I said, and it was very deliberate, there used to be this notion that the pack-in planes are simpler. That is no longer true, and we can't ever go back down. So in the future you will see more and more complex things and more complete things.
Why is it that you feel like you can't go back down? Because you've still kept the Asobo A320neo in there, and there's different levels and different reasons why people fly different types of aircraft.
Yeah, I mean, I think we left it there for a reason because people like it. We're actually going to look at telemetry a lot of who's playing, which plane is flown more. If there's the same, then we're probably going to leave them both in. Because you're right, there's a different accessibility point with those aircraft. I think there's just an expectation of what flight sim is becoming, and I want it to be as complete as possible, and we will go make lots and lots of highly complex aircraft.
And so speaking of highly complex aircraft, you kind of finished the show yesterday with a bit of a big one, the 737 MAX coming from Asobo Studio. You say it's going to be the most complex airliner that you've made so far. What makes it the most complex so far for you?
So it's the biggest team we ever put on an aircraft. They had a fairly long time, and as Jörg said, we set a standard now, and we're trying to match to that standard. It's got all the latest improvements we added to all the new systems. For example, the A330 we showed yesterday with the surfaces, it's got that obviously as well. Everything we added in terms of complexity and simulation to 2024 is supported on this aircraft, and it's our biggest aircraft project so far.
Excellent. I think the room kind of exploded yesterday with excitement when those kind of teaser screenshots came up. So I'm just going to change gear just a little bit very quickly whilst I still have a bit of time. So third-party developers, you mentioned earlier. Obviously, you've mentioned as well that most add-ons from the current sim will hopefully be forward compatible with 24. Are you giving them access beforehand in order to test them and make sure that they can tell their community, yes, this does work, or no, we need to just do a few little tweaks here and there beforehand?
Yeah, I mean, some of our partners clearly have access to a build right now. It's not entirely stable, I would say, so we are not rolling this out, and the documentation, the SDK is maturing. But yeah, before launch, absolutely, we're going to roll the SDK out. But we're thinking about it this way. When I said yesterday we have about 25 partners, I would say probably 18 to 20 of those make aircraft. So it's a substantive part of the community making aircraft for the base sim, and they give us feedback now. So we've been at this for a few months, but the documentation is still behind, and some of the stability stuff just has to be worked through. But I would expect it in the next few months that we'll have it.
Excellent. So hopefully come November they'll be able to get involved in. Excellent.
I mean, basically, because we don't know all the aircraft. Like, we don't test third-party aircraft internally. It takes too much time. I remember the DC-6 from PNBG. It took me forever to really understand everything, and we can't do that, but they can. Yeah. So we just need to give them the tool to make sure everything works.
Cool. Awesome. So November 19th is the release date. Are people going to be able to have an opportunity to test it out, fly it out beforehand, or are we going to have to wait until November to get our hands on it?
We'll do something like similar to 2020. We'll have some tests, load testing in particular for all the services. We have a lot more services this time. I think it's about 30. Yeah. I think when we launched last time it was like 6. So we need to go make sure that all stands up well, and then just streaming and CDN endpoints and those types of things need to be tested. So we'll probably have something, but it's pretty late, right? A few weeks before.
Yeah. Cool. Okay, cool. Before we wrap up, anything else you want to add?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Questions?
Cool. It's good to see you. I would say that I hope people heard that, and it's because it's a thing that's important for the community. With the community is what I would like every simmer to take this away from this presentation or from this show, because when you think about it, Asobo I think did an amazing job. When you think about 2020, with a team of 100 or so, put together the entire sim on their own. Like they made 30 planes. And I think now we have about 800 people. We can go into much more detail, and I think that's needed, right? To really take it to the next level on every step. Get yourself experts that already have been doing this for years and bring them together, because I think we as a community can make the perfect sim. Just one studio, I don't think it's possible. Like, there's not enough people ever. So I think that's the path forward, and you'll see lots more. I said there's another, I think, 10 people that we haven't even announced. So it's going to be, it's not a community product as a sort of it's freeware or something, but it's every expert gets to, if there's an expertise out there, we will try to partner.
And we've only got 5 months left, so at this rate we're going to be looking at 2 partners revealed every month.
I know. Dev Q&As or something. Like, we'll bring it out. It'll be fun.
And we'll be watching. Cool. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. Enjoy the rest of the show, and see you around.